Hi guys! This year I wanted to make some Hollywood glam furniture, but not old Hollywood glam, modern Hollywood glam, but with the same luxurious fabrics like fur and velvet, leather and satin, and the same shiny finishes like mirrors and sequins, glitter, glass, pearl and metal, and of course the same stylized details like clear lucite furniture, curves, tufted tops, rhinestones, and of course bold geometric patterns. So to start, I decided upon a simple black sofa made entirely with foam and a thrift store skirt. I'm Kat Williams, guys, and I hope you enjoy this video. I used a small piece of foam core board that I purchased in a dollar store. And to start with this, I'm going to cut this into 3 equal shapes that are 6 inches long and 2.5 inches wide. This is about a 1/4 inch piece of foam core. And I'm going to stack 2 of them together and use white or PVA glue to glue them together. PVA glue is white glue. Any craft glue, tacky glue, Elmer's glue falls under that category. And just going ahead and add glue liberally to one side and glue the pieces together. Next, I found a couple of pieces of some 1/4 inch popcorn foam, and I call it popcorn foam because it's the type that breaks up into little pieces. If you cannot find popcorn foam, I suggest you go with cardboard, or you can even peel the edges off of the paper off of your foam core. And then I'm going to sketch in a little bit of a slanted pattern on each one. I'm just trying to make the top pointy, so I'm going to whittle away some of the foam until I can get it pointed at the top, and still that broad 1/4 inch piece at the bottom. It doesn't need to be perfect. This will be covered, and it's going to serve as your armrests. But we're using that popcorn foam because it's quite flexible and you can bend it. Once you have those pieces together, you can put those to the side. And I'm pulling out my thrift store skirt now. I got this for $1 at the local Goodwill. It's kind of a velvety, fake suede kind of thing, but it's really soft, very smooth. Picks up lint pretty easily though, but it was only $1, so hey, who cares? And I'm going to add a little bit of glue onto the top, the bottom, and the front of the double stacked pieces of foam core board. This is going to serve as my seat. So just glue a little bit of the fabric at the top, the front, and the bottom. Don't worry about the sides, and don't worry about the rough edges just yet. And because it's white glue that I'm using to glue this in place, it's going to take a minute to dry, so I'm just going to clamp or hold that in place until it's finished. I'm going to do this very same thing with the back, except this time I'm going to cover the sides of both ends and most of the front of the other and the entire back of it. Now, I made 4 little pieces that I folded into thirds. And these are going to fit along the sides of the backrest and the seat that I just finished with upholstering. So you can glue those onto the seat. Don't worry about the whole thing, but you want to cover most of the back because this is going to get covered, only part of this is going to get covered by the armrests. Glue that in place, and then you can cut off the frayed edges of the other fabric and then just put a little bit of Mod Podge or white glue down to make it stick and hold in place so that it doesn't fray out. Now onto the armrest. I'm going to use a little bit of white glue on this and some scraps of the black fabric. Glue the fabric onto the sides, and I'm going to let it dry thoroughly on either side first. And once dried, I'm going to fold it down. Then I used another piece of fabric and cut out a rectangle that's about twice the length of the arm and about a 1/4 inch longer than the width on either side. I also grabbed 2 little pieces of wire. It doesn't matter how thick this wire is. You can just use jewelry wire for this. And I'm just going to use a little E6000 because it dries so quickly to glue the wire on the inside of the 1/4 inches of excess fabric. This is on either side, and that's going to act as your hem, but it's also going to help this foam to bend and shape. And then a little white glue to glue it in place along both sides. You're going to want to weight this down while it's drying. And if you don't want to hold it, you can use something heavy. Just a small book will do. And that way, once dried, you'll be able to bend and shape your arms. You don't want to bend them too much because of course you can break or snap your styrofoam eventually, but for right now it's very flexible and it will continue to be flexible for quite a bit. Glue the 2 armrests onto either side of your sofa. You want them at the very back so that they're touching the backrest, and at the very bottom so they're touching the front. And then I use some pieces of foam. I do a lot of mail order, and so I always get extra pieces of foam in with the things that I order. However, if you don't have this, you can cut down a piece of sponge, or you can walk into Walmart and get one of those great big pieces of air filter foam for like 97 cents in the home improvement aisle. And then I cut this into thirds to fit both the seat cushions and the seat back. Then I cut out another piece of fabric that was a little bit large on all 4 sides. And using white glue again, I glued it in place and clamped it to allow it to dry. Once dry, I trimmed off the extra fabric and then used some super glue to glue the little peaks or the corners in place. You want to glue them so that they're facing along the longer parts of the sides, and that way they won't be seen from the front. You can glue your sofa cushions in place now and do the same thing to make a back, but you want to make one exception. I'm going to use a thinner piece of foam, again the same kind that I received in mail order. Extra cushion to this. If you don't have a thinner piece of foam like this, you can always pick up a piece of felt. And in my case, I actually don't know where my black thread is, but of course if you have thread to match your fabric, then go with that. I'm just going to use a little fishing line and sew a tiny crisscross, going up through the back, down through the front, and up through the back and down through the front again to form a little X. And just to make sure my tuft holds in place, I'm just going to knot it at the back and add a little bit of glue to secure it before cutting off my thread. To make an ottoman, I'm going to use some more foam core board, and I'm going to cut this into 5 3-inch circles. Now I'm using a circle cutter, so this makes this really easy, but of course you can use an X-Acto knife for this as well. And then I took 2 of the circles and put them to the side whole and kept 3 of them. And for the 3 that I kept, I went on ahead and cut out the center piece so that I made it into a bit of a donut. The center piece that I'm cutting out is about 1 3/4 inches. And then I just sanded around one of the center pieces, and I'm going to center that inside one of my donuts. And then I'm going to take a whole piece of foam core and place that on top. I'm just trying to make sure these line up perfectly on the other side. So you can center your smaller piece and glue it onto the whole circle. Now you can glue together the 3 remaining donut pieces. You can also glue together both of the whole pieces. And then for my donuts, I cut out a small piece of cardstock, the same diameter of 3 inches, and I'm going to glue that to the bottom. Now I'm using an additional piece of foam, the light thin foam, or of course you can use felt again. And you can see I've made several little dots on the back. They're about 1/4 inch apart. And then you're going to sew this the same as you did with the seat back cushion, simply by going in through the back, making a tiny crisscross at the top, and then sewing, and then bringing the needle back to the back. And when you've completed with all of the tufts, tie it off at the end and glue it to secure. And now you can glue the foam onto the rest of the top of the ottoman. Now I cut off the excess fabric to make it into a circle, and then the extra around the circle I cut little triangles out, and I'm going to glue the little flaps down. It's not going to be pretty at this point, but it's fine because this is all going to get covered. I'm going to go on ahead and paint this with black paint, including the top and bottom of the donut and the bottom of the ottoman top. And now I'm using a piece of the hemline of the skirt because it already has that nicely pressed in fold, but of course you can press in a fold yourself. But the hem makes it so much easier, so I'm just going to cut off a small piece of the hem and glue it in place with E6000 so that the fold of the hem is on the top of the ottoman and also at the top of the base of the ottoman. Once dry, I went through and used some scissors to cut off the excess. And just to keep the fabric from fraying, I used a little bit of white glue at the bottom of the fabric where I'm cutting it off. Now I'm using some dowels for this. And this is just a small little piece of 1/4 inch dowel that I was about to throw away, but there's just enough to make some seat legs. I'm going to file these with a nail file into a trapezoid shape. I want them thinner at the bottom and thicker at the top. So just file a few times at a slant, and then continue to turn your dowel until you've got all 4 pieces. And then continue to turn your dowel until you've sanded all 4 sides. And glue those at the bottom of your sofa. You could do the same thing for an ottoman. My sofa legs are 1/2 inch, and my ottoman legs are 1/4 inch. And now for some simple pillows. I have some leftover ribbon from other projects, so I'm just going to go on ahead and put a little bit of E6000 at the back. So use just a tiny bit of E6000, fold it on either end and clamp it. By doing it this way, you don't have to worry about inverting the pillow because you'll barely see the E6000 or the seams when it's stuffed and full and propped on your sofa. And then I took a cotton puff and split it in half, just to make it easier to fit both pieces inside the pillow. And then I stuffed the pillow with them and glued the top off with a tiny bit of E6000 again, clamping and holding it into place. Now you can arrange your pillow, and I'm going to cover the mirror tray and the for a throw in a future tutorial that will be coming up in the next couple of weeks. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Bye.